Hello students, welcome to a video on photosynthesis. We will label this photosynthesis, the master drawing. And I was hoping that I could make a large drawing with you about photosynthesis that wraps together all of the ideas. But before we do, I want you to check back and see if you have properly drawn the inputs and outputs of photosynthesis in your journal. So at this point, hopefully you have a section in your journal that shows the inputs to photosynthesis. You've drawn those, and then underneath those or next to those, hopefully you have the outputs of photosynthesis. If you remember, photosynthesis is the process by which plants capture sun's energy and lock it into molecules that we call chemical energy, which is also known as food, which is also known as glucose. For an input, we have water molecules and CO2 molecules. Plants need to take in water and carbon dioxide, and plants combine those together to create oxygen molecules and a large molecule, C6H12O6, that we call glucose, which is a type of sugar, which is also food. So all of those names work. So if we want to name these underneath the item, we would call this water. H2O is water. We call this carbon dioxide. Plants take in both of those things and produce oxygen, as well as food for itself. This is food, also known as sugar, also known as glucose, and we've also called it chemical energy. So let's double check how we did with these drawings and make sure you have in your journal work a representative of each. You should have water. We had 3 marshmallows attached to each other. These 2 are H's, this one's an O, and that would represent a water molecule made up of 3 atoms. Now, why did I make it a face? I'm not sure why I did that. Next, you had a CO2 molecule. You had 3 marshmallows attached together, carbon in the middle, oxygen on the ends, and these were double bonded to each other. We've been working with rules of chemistry that say every carbon has to make 4 bonds, and every oxygen has to make 2 bonds. And so we built a carbon dioxide molecule and a water molecule. Notice this oxygen also makes 2 bonds. And in the end, we had an oxygen molecule, which is 2 atoms of oxygen double bonded together. Notice both oxygens have 2 bonds. And then we ended up with this huge monster molecule called glucose. If you haven't drawn it yet, draw it with me. What plants do, plants take in CO2 in their leaves. So you could imagine that if you had a plant inside of the leaf, the CO2 molecules come in. C in the middle, oxygen molecules on the end. The CO2 molecule goes into the leaf, passes through the leaf, and the plant pulls off carbon molecules. Most people think plants grow from the soil, but these carbon dioxide molecules are floating around in the air. And plants grab 6 carbon molecules, they pluck it off the CO2. They grab 6 carbon molecules. Draw this with me if you haven't drawn it yet. And they grab some oxygen atoms. They grab carbon atoms. I was calling them molecules, sorry. When they're individual, they're atoms. So these guys right now are atoms because I haven't bonded them together yet. Once they're bonded together, that's when they become a molecule. So thinking about how to draw our glucose, which is our food, I'm drawing glucose over here. This is going to be our drawing for C6H12O6. If you make a ring of 5 carbons with 1 oxygen, and then you hang a carbon off of the carbon that's next to the oxygen, we can start drawing our glucose molecule. A glucose molecule has 24 marshmallows. It has 6 plus 12 plus 6, 24 different atoms in the glucose molecule. So to finish this off, on all of these carbons, we're going to put an oxygen molecule. Double check that you've drawn this, and off this carbon too. So now what we've done is we have 1 oxygen molecule here, atom here, an oxygen atom here, oxygen atom, oxygen atom, oxygen atom, oxygen atom, linked up with 6 carbons. So now we can say that we've used all of the carbons, and we've used all of the oxygens. So now we just have to place H's on this crazy drawing. So 1H, 2H, 3H, 4H, 5H, 6H, 7H, 8H, 9H, 10H, 11H, and here's my 12th H. Now if you go around this molecule, you should see that every carbon atom is making 4 bonds with another atom, and that makes carbon stable. Every oxygen atom is making 2 bonds, and that makes oxygen stable. Every hydrogen atom makes 1 bond, and that makes hydrogen stable. So if you go around and count, for example, if we wanted to make sure all of our carbons have 4 bonds, look at this carbon here. This carbon has 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds around it. Look at this carbon here, 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds around it, 4 bonds around it, 4 bonds around it, 4 bonds around it, 4 bonds around it. All of our carbons have successfully met the requirement of 4 bonds. If you do that with oxygens, you'll notice that every oxygen has 2 bonds around it, and every hydrogen has 1 bond. So we've drawn all the inputs and outputs for photosynthesis. You already have that drawn in your journal, hopefully. I also took a picture of it to help you conceptualize what. So here we have built some props for you from a molecule kit that is used by chemistry students often. Here the red atoms represent oxygen, the black atoms represent carbon, and the white atoms represent hydrogen. And so you can tell which molecules are which by following along with the bonding. Every hydrogen always makes 1 bond, every carbon always makes 4 bonds, and every oxygen always makes 2. So you can see that this is CO and O, and so this molecule here is CO2. This molecule here, there's an H, and an O, so that is H2O. That is our water molecule. This huge molecule is food, or sugar or chemical energy. Its chemical formula is C6H12O6 because it has 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens in it. So you can see that this would be O2. These are all 4 molecules that are involved in photosynthesis. Inputs over here, outputs over here. And so what I wanted to do with you was to draw a master drawing that tried to wrap together all of the pieces of photosynthesis. In your journal, find a new page, and on one side of it, we're going to make 2 boxes. And the boxes need to be pretty big. These are going to be all of the inputs for photosynthesis. So on this box, we're going to draw inputs. For the formula of photosynthesis, the inputs are 6 water molecules, 6 CO2 molecules. So we're going to start drawing. We're going to draw 1 water, 2 water. Keep drawing. We have all of our water molecules. Now I'm going to draw our CO2 molecules. And I would like you to grab some colored pencils to try to color code them. Let's make a key. I'm going to use red for oxygen. I'm going to use black for carbon. And I'm just going to choose, let's see, maybe blue for hydrogen. And I'm going to color code them so that we can figure out what is going on with this drawing to try to wrap together our master picture. So plants take in, here's my hydrogens, grab a colored pencil, now I'm going to do the oxygens. Color them in. Pause this if you need to. Carbons. All right, so now plants have access to 6 water molecules, 6 CO2 molecules. Now with sunlight, a plant can take in all of these molecules. Water goes in through the roots, CO2 goes in through the leaves, and with a lot of light energy, plants can build the outputs. So let's do the outputs next. Here's my outputs box. Let me draw a box. This will be the outputs. This is what comes out of photosynthesis, and that's going to be 6 oxygen molecules and C6H12O6. So here we go. I'm going to draw 6 oxygen molecules. Double bond them together. I'm going to color them in. Here's my oxygens. Pause this if you need to. And then we're going to build glucose again. All right, you might want to pause this. Get everybody ready with your pen. Here's how to draw glucose one more time. We're going to start with 5 carbons and an oxygen in a ring. Essentially, you're making a molecule bracelet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons, 1 oxygen in a ring. I'm going to color that oxygen red so that I remember there's an oxygen, and then there's also 5 carbons in a ring. Now find a carbon next to the oxygen and put another carbon off of it. And that takes care of our carbon requirements. Every carbon except this one that has just a little H will have an oxygen hanging off of it. Those are red, right? Or whatever color you chose. And then we need to make sure they all have the right number of bonds. That's this oxygen now has 2, so that's good. So add H's to everywhere you need to finish the bonds. This carbon needs another H and another H. I'm going to color them blue. I don't need to label them. Now you might think this is overkill. Why do I have to do so many of these drawings in a row? And we find that with practice we can change things from short-term memory to long-term memory. We're trying to do this in so many different layers so that it becomes cemented into your brain. And we're trying to learn about these molecules. So now we have a collection of molecules here. We have our 6O2. We have our glucose molecule, which we also, this one we call glucose. That's a type of sugar. We also call it food, and we've also called it chemical energy. Plants store sunlight by making this strange shaped molecule. It is so unlikely that it wouldn't ever occur on its own. In a million years, it wouldn't spontaneously be created, but plants deliberately make it to store sunlight energy in the bonds of this large molecule. This is your master drawing. You have inputs, you have 6 waters, 6 CO2s, you have outputs, 6 oxygens and glucose, and you've drawn them. Now, your job at your tables is to write a description of what plants do during photosynthesis. And you need to put all these in words. You want to talk about water and carbon dioxide and oxygen and glucose. Can anybody give a sentence starter to begin the description? Maybe on the board a few details could be written. What I want is for you to take this huge drawing and try to wrap your heads around what physically is happening. Your description might say plants take in 6 water molecules and 6 CO2 molecules. In the presence of sunlight, they can convert those molecules into 6 oxygen molecules and 1 glucose molecule. Plants grow by plucking the carbons off of CO2 and plugging them into a large structure called glucose. Plants grow by taking CO2 from the air, stripping the carbon from it, and locking it together in a big molecule. Your job is to try to write a description. Probably take 3 sentences. Please do that now. Let me go back to the molecules. If you wanted to see the picture of molecules, you could ask to see these in person. Here are molecules built by a molecule kit. That is your photosynthesis master drawing. I apologize for how long this video was. Thank you very much for listening.